the relationship between the concentration which is delivered and which is there in the blood changes with time. So there is, because of redistribution and elimination, we cannot measure the redistribution, what has happened to the plasma concentration, and we need complex pharmacokinetic modeling. So what we end up is that we only presume the concentrations which are there in the blood, which may not actually be matching with the predicted or the actual concentrations. Recovery profile, again, context-sensitive half-times. When you see here, it is about 40 minutes with 8 hours of propofol infusion. But for sevoflurane, the decrement time is almost 80%, and the patient is likely to come up with in less than 8 minutes when you have given it for 350 minutes. Marsh and Schneider models, when they are compared, they have significant difference at all times. They do not match with each other. So we do not have a single model which is universally acceptable or which matches with, which predicts the right kind of concentrations in the blood. This is when they are compared. Look at this, this scatter. You'll find all the patients which are below this line, where there is a poor match between the predicted and the measured concentrations. All these patients would have been aware, because they do not fall in this particular matching line, the predicted and the measured. So this would mean that all these patients in this scatter would be aware during surgery, and that's the reason we need some sort of a monitoring like this to make sure that the patients are not aware. Just the last sentence about precision and bias. What is precision? Precision is how close the calculated value is to the measured value. And you have to take into the account of performance error, which occurs with these machines. What is bias? It is over and underestimation of measured values. And where do we match these two? You'll find, apart from this part where there is good precision and zero bias, at all other points, either the precision is not appropriate or there is a positive or a negative bias when you talk about the TCIs. So only till 5 minutes it has a good precision and zero bias. But later on, you'll find that the precision falls and there would be over or lesser estimation of the drug concentrations, which is likely predicting. So the choice, I leave it to yours. You want to use such expensive equipments which we do not actually have a control, or we continue to use the inhalational agents which are simple, cheaper, and more reliable to produce anesthetic effects. Thank you.
Brilliant presentation as always, sir. Just a few comments. One of the important things that you brought up in TCI is the increased risk of awareness that you have with anesthesia. Few safety features that I practiced when we did TCI was, one, that the TCI infusion is always on a dedicated IV line, not the line through which you're giving your infusions or the fluids, because there's a possibility that the propofol and the remifentanil will go up the line, or there'll be a disconnection or an extravasation, and that the line is always visible. So that's one of the other things that we always practice. The second thing that we always did was never give muscle relaxants to the patients, so that if there's any movement, you know that there's a possibility of awareness. The other thing, probably just picking, and this is from a patient safety perspective, that the figure that you have there, we always ensured that we used Luer-Lock syringes, because when you have so much going on, there's a possibility of disconnection which you don't pick up. So just few of the things that we practiced from the patient safety perspective, because awareness is reasonably high, or possibility of awareness is definitely higher with TCI than with inhalation anesthesia.
Yeah, thank you very much for complimenting the complimentary remarks. Yes, I didn't talk about those safety mechanisms, and those are very well accepted, that you should have a Luer-Lock and they should always be visible, and you do not try to mix these drugs with any other things. Regarding muscle relaxants, and it's a very good point, and in previous lectures on depth of anesthesia which I have delivered, We've only emphasized that according to Eager, 2006, he has changed the definition of anesthesia. And there are only two reversible factors which we need to take. One is amnesia, the other is immobility. And the MAC which you would want to determine for producing immobility is what is most important. And the reason is that we have all switched over to non-depolarizing agents. All of us feel relaxant is an integral and the most important part of anesthetic technique. That mindset has to change. Skolin used to give us a window. Skolin used to give us a window. We used to give thiopentone, skolin, intubate, keep our analyzer on. And when the patient was coming out of skolin, we have not still given a non-depolarizer, and if the surgeon has incised and our patient moves, we knew that we have to keep up the concentrations at a particular level. And we would not push in a relaxant to see that the surgeon can continue and the patient cannot move. But with the onset of non-depolarizers, that window of immobility to be ascertained in patients is lost. So we need to be more scientific now. When you go by the time constants, we know that even if we use the most potent inhalational agents, the brain concentrations to match the alveolar concentrations, to have an equilibration with them, takes about 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. So it is not before 10 to 15 minutes that you can allow the incision or a surgical procedure to proceed, unless you go up onto an overpressure effect, so that you can match the alveolar concentrations to brain concentration within 5 minutes. So that concepts have to come in, and yes, immobility is one of the most important factors. Relaxants should not be used for superficial surgeries. You should try to balance anesthesia so that you produce immobility in a patient, and 99.9% patients would be unaware if they do not move or respond by movement to a noxious stimulus.
Thank you, Pankaj. That was an excellent presentation. I just have one, pardon my ignorance. Can we use entropy or BIS monitor to monitor the awareness?
Yes, when you're using TIVA, when you're using TCI, it's a must. Because the way you can produce awareness, when you're presuming concentrations to be achieved, when the predicted and the measured are not matching, you need some sort of a clinical monitor to tell you that the patient is properly anesthetized. But the problem with these monitors are also that they have taken a nomogram amongst cross-section of thousands of populations, let's see. And only propofol has been administered for a sedation. We cannot use propofol to model inhalational anesthetics. Yes, for TCI, when you're using propofol, it is a must, and it will probably decrease, although some studies have shown that even with BIS, when you see the scatter, there's a large scatter. They really do not match the measured and the predicted concentrations. But you have something at least to tell you that you are at a safe range.
Thank you, Professor Kundra, for such an excellent presentation. You could have had many questions, but the time is a constraint.
Now I request Murali Pandurangan present his topic. The specialist anesthetist in Sri Khalifa Medical City Abu Dhabi, former locum anesthetist reach St. Richard Hospital,